We accept the reality of the world which we are presented. And I hope that your listeners, I hope that I can be brave enough not always to accept the reality of the world that I'm being presented, to embrace these hard challenges that are before us of climate action, of creating diverse and equitable workplaces. And I hope that we can embrace those harder challenges together and move forward for the betterment of all.
This is the Workplace Innovator podcast, where we talk with corporate real estate and facility management leaders about the industry trends, challenges, and technologies impacting your organization. This show is powered by Eptura, the global work tech company providing software solutions for people, workplaces, and assets to enable you to work your world. We're back, folks. It's Mike, and I am in Baltimore, Maryland for the NFMT 2023 conference. It's a show that I have been involved with for many years now. I just had a chance to speak this morning, and we talk about facility management. We talked about technology. We inspired the audience, I hope, to embrace change and see what comes next in the world of the built environment and the future workplace. And in the audience this morning was a longtime friend of this podcast and a past guest. I was going to say a recent guest, but it was a while ago. It was pre-pandemic when he joined us. And now he's sitting in front of me. So let's welcome him back to the Workplace Innovator podcast. It's Brendan Robinson. Welcome back.
Hello, Mike. Thank you for having me back. I appreciate it.
It's great to have you back. So it's been a while. We've seen each other these last few years since the pandemic hit and our worlds were turned upside down. We communicated a lot, and I want to talk about all of that. But let's talk about what's most important here in 2023. The fact that you got to sit and hear DJ Mike P. give one of his presentations live in person. What was your experience like being in the audience for one of my little dog and pony shows, I guess?
Well, it was a wonderful show. I had to sit up front because, that's where I wanted to be, but also it was a capacity crowd. It was full to the brim. So
yeah, it was pretty wild.
You definitely brought him in. And it's great to sit through one of your presentations because you really pulled so much together. And you have this broad view. You get to do 2 podcasts and meet so many workplace innovators and facility leaders across the world. And it was a great overview of what people are facing, what insights they're bringing to the table, and some actionable things we can do for the future. So,
well, thank you. That's the most blatant fishing for compliments I've ever done on this show. So, Brendan, this is our second time talking since you've been the Director of Facilities and Operations for Corporate Real Estate at Under Armour, with the headquarters right here in beautiful Baltimore. And when last we recorded something like this, we did it live. We did it as a webinar, and we sat together at your awesome Under Armour campus. You gave me the tour. We walked around. Everybody, I'll share in the show notes the links to the previous conversation with Brendan because it was November of 2019. And the topic was defining your workplace, a vision for the future. I went back and re-listened recently and wrote down some notes that I want to ask you about because little did you know, and little did I know, a mere 3-4 months later, little pandemic changed our world. And we basically had this great conversation, but a lot of it was a presentation. You had really thought through and wanted to contribute to the world of FM and tell your fellow practitioners, hey, here's what we're doing at Under Armour, but here's also what I think is important after years, dare I say, decades of experience in this industry. You were just like, I want to share with my community, and it was awesome. So tell me what you were thinking back then, and then fast forward to 2023, and we'll get into what you think today. But what are your thoughts?
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, it was a great experience to be out there. We were in the pump house by the water, listening to the ships go by and the horns blow.
That's right. That's right.
It made live audience very fun, and I appreciate the opportunity to kind of present what I wanted to do was really take a chance to say, here's my read of the facilities world. Here's how you align the mission of your organization to what you do as facilities, and also in context of what's going on in the world. and give some of those predictions about what I thought was important and where we were headed. And, we're a global company. So at that time, we were getting some of the inklings of COVID and coronavirus from overseas impacting some of our global offices. But certainly wasn't going to say I could predict the future and didn't know what was coming for us. So
we didn't mention it at all.
It was a big change. Right. We did not mention it at all. It was a big change, focused on a lot of other trends. And so, I spoke about mapping the future and placing bets. And some of the bets that I spoke about last time were really going deep into employee experience,
right?
Healthy buildings, supporting the digital transformation efforts in our office, and climate action strategy. And
I'd say you nailed it,
I got to say some of those things definitely held up. But I also spoke about some of the specific initiatives we were doing, and some of those have kind of gone away in this world too. So hits and misses there across the board.
Were they derailed because of the pandemic, or do you think that had that not happened, some of those would have kind of just fallen off anyway because they weren't working?
I think like a lot of other things, the pandemic accelerated change that was probably going to happen anyway. So the specific example I can think of is we were doing a lot of applications, a lot of opportunities for people to self-serve, to push buttons and declare their preference. And that was really based on people being in the same location every day. So we could deliver them packages, make them comfortable, bring services to that spot. And now we're just in a world where the building, different people are there each day. We're in a much more shared environment. It's much more hybrid. And so we can't rely on the person in the loop feedback all the time to deliver services. So we have to get smarter. We have to use different tools to understand what's going on in our environment through sensing and our presence as well, physically out there, just to be aware of what's going on and then deliver those great services and tools without having to have a person in the loop. So I think that's something that probably would have happened eventually, but it certainly got accelerated by the pandemic.
Interesting. And Brendan, this aligns with so much of what I've heard on the show, and guests have told me that the trends that were happening in 2019 and earlier, these were not new ideas. The things that we're now dealing with hybrid working, we didn't call it that back then. We probably would have referred to it as flexible working or agile environments or other terminology, but the idea of giving more mobility and the ability to choose where and when you work and using technology tools to create those frictionless experiences both in and out of the office were things that we were talking about. And a lot of it did get accelerated, and a lot of it now is where we are today. And I want to hear more about your current projects and what you're focused on here today. But I also need to catch up with you about the fun stuff, right? You were very patient with me on the webinar, and we did some singing together with your favorite bands from the 90s. We talked about Green Day, and I want to say
Hootie
and the Blowfish. That's right.
Pearl Jam.
You had just seen Hootie in concert, and fast forward to today, we're back, right? We're doing live events again. And you've got two young daughters who are music fans themselves. So tell me, what's on the radar as far as live music coming up for the Robinson family?
Well, I've had to cut myself off from buying music tickets because concerts are definitely back, and there's so many of them coming up. We got Bruce Springsteen coming to town right here in Baltimore in a couple weeks.
The boss.
Chris Stapleton, Foo Fighters on the agenda for this year. But you mentioned my daughters. I'm most looking forward to taking to my wife and my daughters to see, Eras Tour has begun. The magic is happening. So Taylor
Swift, everybody. How did you get tickets? How did you elbow through all those teenage girls and get tickets for your family?
It was an ordeal. We had to wait in the queue.
Okay.
Went down to zero, got kicked out of the queue, went back to zero. But somehow we were able to, on that horrible day for many people.
The drama.
We were part of the few who were celebrating and able to get those tickets.
Well, good for you. Give me your favorite Taylor Swift song from the new album. Come on, Dad. You've been listening. It's been playing on a loop in your car, probably.
It's definitely playing. I've been teaching my daughter to drive, and she just got her license, so that has definitely been the background music for those lessons. So, got to go with track number 1, Lavender Haze. It's awesome.
I just want to stay. Come on, Brendan. In Lavender Haze. You got a pretty good voice, I remember. So many themes running through my head right now. I did just recently sing a little, "It's me, Hi, I'm the problem. It's me. At tea time, everybody agrees. So we know it. That's in our heads. But tell me the truth. I promise we'll cut this part out so your daughters don't hear it. But when I listen to Taylor Swift, every song sounds like I've heard this before. She's got a great style, and it's something that is obviously resonating with a lot of people, but every song sounds like the other. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just my old man ears, but is that true for you? Do you feel like this is the first time I'm hearing this song, yet I feel like I've already heard this song? And maybe that's just the brilliance of Taylor Swift's writing.
It's entertaining, fun to see, makes my girls happy. So
that's what matters right there. That's the bottom line. And that's all we can give you folks on this, the Taylor Swift Fan Club Dad Edition podcast. We'll now resume to our regular facility management and workplace programming. But I do know that this morning in my presentation, I shared a lot of quotes from past guests, and I know you are very good with the quotes. Can you give me something new for my audience that resonates today as we deal with the challenges of the workplace?
Well, one quote that comes to mind, and hopefully we can separate quotes from the quoter, but there's a Terence McKenna quote, and he was a father of psychedelic drugs in the 70s and 80s. So if we can separate lifestyle from the quote, I still think it's valuable for today. Is that we don't need to find answers, we need to face answers, and I think this resonates with some of the stuff you presented today. We can't be selective about the data and the facts that we choose to listen to. We have to be really clear about the realities and the challenges we face, and be brave enough to face them in whatever way you can. So to me, that's an important quote.
Yeah. The way I put it is I have to be self-aware enough to know I have a unique perspective that then informs how I process data and understand that information, and my biases or biases. What is it? Basically, I have bias. And I have to recognize that what I'm seeing and hearing about the future of work and the data about occupancy and return to office and all those topics that are top of mind for all of us, and what technology we'll need in the future and how it all impacts the built environment, I have a perspective, and we all do. And I think that's the first step towards a more meaningful conversation and more meaningful dialogue in these settings. And I know that you and I have had lots of conversations, nuanced conversations offline over the years. And I just want to give you a chance to share what you're thinking these days, because as we referred to those earlier episodes, when you were sharing about your vision for the future, one of the top things I remember you brought up was worker desires were top of mind, and the fact that you have to focus as a facility management professional. And the purpose of all we do in our facilities is to create a wonderful, frictionless experience, right, for the people. So you nailed that. So you basically got that really correct back in 2019. And now even more so, as there seems to be a new frontier in the world of, we'll call it hybrid work, but flexible work, and the fact that most organizations are just letting their employees choose when and where to go to do their work. How are you evolving these thoughts, and what are you doing in a practical way that my audience might benefit from hearing about?
Employee experience was important back then. We were talking before. That's why we were deploying apps and polls and questions to really understand their needs and to tune our services accordingly. And flash forward to today, employee experience is having its biggest moment ever right now. There's so much debate about how to entice people, magnetize people back to the office. And whether you're mandating people return or trying to lure them there, facilities leaders still need to do a great job of driving a wonderful employee experience. And what I'm seeing evolve right now is obviously people just need straight up communication direction. Do I need to check in or do I not? Can I bring guests? What are the rules of engagement in the office place to keep us safe now? People are accepting of that. They just want to know, what tool am I supposed to use? What's the process? Can you make that more frictionless and more easy? And then everything is kind of becoming an event now. Event planning is part of my world, but things we would have never gotten involved before are now an event. It's not just one employee wanting to come back. It's a whole team of people wanting to come back, and they want to catch a workout. They want to have a meal together. They want to collaborate. They want to meet their clients or prep for a meeting or post game from a big meeting in the clients. And so every single thing is an event now. And we are curating not just the in-office experience, but an event just like this conference we're at. We have to set up these days of meetings, and people need support through every step of the way. So we find ourselves doing a lot more of that event planning and making everything, a very special experience when people come back.
Purpose. Yeah, we talked about it. Purpose and intentionality and what's the reason for coming back. And now you added another layer that I hadn't really thought enough about, which is communicating. Well, do you mind, Brendan, giving us a kind of a state of the world for you and your team at Under Armour? And do you use the term return to office policy, or do you say reason for the office? Do you say guardrails? All these things we talk about on the show, what resonates with you and what doesn't? I'd be curious to know.
So we say return to office.
Okay.
There was a time there, I might have said return to work a few times, but then I was quickly reminded that we never stopped working.
Never stopped working.
We just did it elsewhere. So it is really about that return to office. I like to think Under Armour did a very good job of handling some of the changes in the pandemic and using them to create opportunities. We did downsize our real estate portfolio to match the size of our in-office workers and reflect the reality of the jobs that switched to remote work. And then in Baltimore at our global headquarters, that opportunity has allowed us to move. So we're kind of moving across town. So from Tide Point, where we are now, to Baltimore Peninsula, which is our future home. And we've done some amazing things at Baltimore Peninsula already and have projects in flight there. And cool. I think in many ways those were enabled by hybrid work and fewer people coming in on a day-to-day basis, getting those folks closer together and more engaged and keeping that great energy in our facilities and on campus. Under Armour does have a hybrid working policy, so people work either 1, 2, 3, or 5 days in the office, depending on your job role. And we have had to adapt all of our sort of on-campus amenities and services to evolve with the hybrid working policy. So
okay.
In the beginning, we thought we were going to dictate, you're a Tuesday, you're a Wednesday, Thursday. But our teammates really needed a lot more flexibility than that. So we tested it out that way for a while till we got comfortable saying, all right, you work it out with your manager. You guys come in. We're not gonna control or dictate that closely when people are coming into the office. If you're a 3-day work person, you're choosing those 3 days along with your manager. And it's been okay. We haven't, we haven't blown the roof off one day or the other.
Okay.
And
that was my question. I was going to say, how do you manage that from a facilities perspective? It seems to be the reality for many organizations. And I imagine that's one of the biggest challenges is we talk about the midweek peak and the trouble that can cause, and also the empty offices on Mondays or Fridays potentially. And that may be a waste of resources. I know you're very in tune with sustainability goals, and that was another one of the things that you discussed last time we were together. Has any of that become more difficult, or how are you handling that, I guess is the better question?
As an organization, we've continued to evolve our mission, vision, values, and purpose. We really want to be a purpose-led organization, and we've declared our values. And sustainability is clearly one of Under Armour's values, top down, and it's something that's grown through every aspect of our organization. It's an imperative for us. We make products that use resources. So switching to being more circular and being environmentally conscious, we now have publicly stated climate action goals and targets. And my team is working very hard to help meet those goals, particularly as it comes to powering our facilities with 100% renewable electricity.
Wow, great.
From the pandemic standpoint, again, we have more buildings and floors than we need for the number of people who are coming in. So we have closed floors. We have pushed people together. And that way we still have that great energy, that great in-office experience, but we're not operating more space than we need to. And we can tune things back on Fridays or Mondays if the crowds are less. The building I work in, for example, if I were to come in on a Friday, it's going to be very inhospitable. I would have to reserve a desk in another building because that building is so low on Fridays. We're only, we're shrinking it further kind of dynamically on those days. So we have done things like that to help balance those energy savings with keeping that great office experience and driving it for our folks who are there.
No, that's wonderful. So it can be done, it sounds like, Brendan, and that's really great to hear. Look at the time. Wow. Before I let you go, I always ask my guests to share a piece of advice, something my audience can take away from this conversation to inspire them as we head into the future of work together. What do you got for me?
Well, I have been reflecting a lot lately because unfortunately my 25th college reunion is coming up shortly. And we were looking back on what music and movies were popular back at that time. And it's actually the 25th anniversary of one of my favorite movies, The Truman Show.
Nice. Jim Carrey classic.
Absolutely. And, there's a line in that movie that says, "We accept the reality of the world which we are presented." And I hope that your listeners, I hope that I can be brave enough not always to accept the reality of the world that I'm being presented, to seek truth, to embrace these hard challenges that are before us of figuring out the workplace, of climate action, of creating diverse and equitable workplaces. And I hope that we can embrace those harder challenges together and move forward for the betterment of all.
Fantastic. Great way to end it. Brendan, this has been awesome. I really want to thank you for joining me again on the Workplace Innovator podcast.
Thank you for having me, Mike.
And there you have it, everybody. Brendan Robinson from Under Armour, back again with more great insights and information. He's a great guy. We can have a lot of fun together, of course, as you heard, but he's very serious about the profession of facility management. And he is always interested in moving things forward, not just today, not just tomorrow, but in the long run. So I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. If you found this conversation valuable, would you please do me a favor? Leave us a rating on Apple or Spotify, wherever you're listening. It helps a lot. I really appreciate it. And I hope that you'll share this with a colleague or a friend, anyone who might like to join us as we continue on our journey to encourage and inspire you to be a workplace innovator. Peace out. You've been listening to the Workplace Innovator podcast, powered by Aptura, the epicenter of the future of work. For more about how we help organizations to engineer a thriving environment by enhancing their employee experience, workspaces, and asset value, please visit aptura.com.